Well, I am so excited to have my friend Matt Pittman here. I think I told him before we walked up here, I brought half the Waxahachie with me. That wasn't, the plan necessarily, but I've got some cool friends that do cool stuff, fortunately. But I think this is the first time that we've hung out like professionally and not, on the back porch. But we're really glad to have you here because, today is all about growing your small business. And I can't think of a better example of somebody who next leveled their small business, other than Matt and Meat Church and the congregation. So thank you for coming.
Well, thanks for such a huge welcome and all the people you planted to take pictures with me outside. Man.
I did. I hate them. So I want to get started with, we see you on social media. We just had a long session on social media where we talked about content and all kinds of things. But, I feel like a lot of the people know, they obviously know what you do and that kind of thing. But I want to talk a little bit about your background and where you grew up and just tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get interested in cooking? Where did that start?
So I wasn't born in Texas. I moved here to 13, actually moved to Mineral Wells right next door. I grew up, actually born in Tennessee, spent a ton of time in Alabama. I had grandparents in both states, very close to one another. And so I just grew up in a typical Southern home where your grandmothers cooked these massive meals. I often joke, like we'd come home from church and I still don't know how my granny in Alabama would have the biggest meal ever within 1 hour of getting home from church. Like I can't even get, peanut butter jelly sandwich made in an hour. But I just always had this love of what they were doing. Well, first off, I like to eat. And I was always the kid in the kitchen asking how you cook things. But it wasn't barbecue. I'm first generation self-taught barbecue man. But I learned, typical Southern food. So mashed potatoes, fried chicken, fried pork chops, fried okra, sweet tea that would make your eyes roll back in your head, cornbread, that sort of thing. So I was always asking, how do you do this? And just a little tidbit about it. I never had it. I wanted to be a chef, but I didn't want to go to culinary school and work the horrible hours that restaurant folks work. So I was motivated to go to school, get a degree, make what I thought would be real money, and here we are.
But you didn't do that at first. So I think a lot of these folks will be surprised to find out you were an IT guy for a long time.
Yeah, I had a degree in finance, which I don't use at all today. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. When you ask kids that are 18 what they want to do, it's a tough question. I had zero clue going into school what I wanted to do, but I did enjoy business and was a good student, and at least that's on my kids I was. So got a finance degree, went on an almost complete ride, academic scholarship, but my senior year, my accounting professor he was really cool at kind of guiding people into where they want to go. And he told us that computer science was like the new hot degree. And I'm really dating myself, but not everybody had a computer. I had one and I was really interested in them. But the computer science degree was programming. It was COBOL and BASIC. I had zero interest in that. So I graduated. I was actually working at Bank of America. I was a customer service manager my senior year in college. And I went over to SMU to a satellite campus and took I don't even know what you call it. It's kind of like I'll call it a certificate program, but I took a 9-month program that was basically Microsoft courses. And I jumped out of my financial career, took a $15,000 cut in pay right a year out of college to take a job on a help desk at a company called Pittman Financial Services, which is where I met my wife. I worked there for 13 years. And then I wanted a slower paced job because my job was crazy. So I actually, I spent a ton of years at Fort Worth. So I came back to Fort Worth, went to work for Elevate Credit. So if you guys drive into Fort Worth, like where Hewlin Mall is across the highway, you'll see a big building that says Elevate in blue. I hung that sign because I oversaw real estate as well. So 20 years leading IT in financial services is what I did for our.
And but all that time you were a very serious barbecue hobbyist. So how was Meat Church born? How did you, at what point? I know you went on Pitmasters, and I won't steal your story, but tell us that story, how that happened.
Yeah, so a lot of Texans love barbecue, love to cook outside, grill for my family. I was a season ticket holder for the Dallas Cowboys, and I was all-star. I raised my hand, said I'll do the tailgating. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I would do the cooking, and so I just love to cook outside. And you want me to tell how it started? Wait.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the company accidental birth.
I would tell the story about Pitmasters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my brother and I created a barbecue team. It was like Pittman barbecue or something. And there's a lady in Dallas. Her name is Alice Lasad. She's super funny, and she tweeted on a Sunday morning, like almost lunchtime, a picture of a tray of barbecue from a barbecue joint in Dallas, and she said something like, "I'm about to have my hashtag me church," and I just thought it was funny. So I screenshot it, and down the road, I was in a neighborhood barbecue competition, and her husband were there. And I said, "Hey, can I use that name for my barbecue team name?" She's like, "Sure." So we started calling ourselves Meat Church. So we competed in Midlothian, and we did really well. And when they called Meat Church, everybody's looking around like, "The heck's Meat Church?" So 2 words that don't go together. I was raised Southern Baptist, so I thought my family's going to kill me for this thing. But once my granddaddy, who was a deacon in the church, he said it was all right. On we went. But there's a TV show time called Barbecue Pitmasters, and I watched it all the time. And I went on YouTube and was looking at tryout videos, and they were terrible. So I had a buddy that I worked with in IT that had dabbled in video. And I was like, "Hey, can you make a video for me?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." So we hooked up my smoker. We went down to Boise Feed and Waxahachie. It was cold. I didn't want to build a fire. I stopped at the gas station, bought a Duraflame log, which is a really bad idea. Put it in my smoker, stood in front of the grain silos, and told a couple stupid jokes like "got the best hair in barbecue" and yada yada. If you watch the trial, my brother cooks with me, and they were in the hospital having a baby. And so when I went to meet my niece, I said, "I need you to come outside. I need to film you for about 20 seconds. We're making a trial tape for Barbecue Pitmasters." And he said, "Of course we are." Because I've always been an entrepreneur, and I've always got some harebrained ideas. So we submitted it, and I'll never forget where I was. I was in my backyard across the street from your house, and I got a call from somebody who said, "Hey, your little tryout video's gone viral on Twitter." Well, it had been retweeted by a few people, and it went nuts. And like the who's who of outdoor cooking put it out there. Well, in the tweet, it was at BBQ Pitmasters, which was the executive producer. And he messaged me, and he was like, "You need to call off the dogs. My Twitter's unusable. Like every time I open it, it's just all your stuff." And I was like, "Well, I don't know if you know how Twitter works, but I don't control that." So my wife and I were at Sugar Bowl watching Trevor Knight, quarterback at OU, absolutely destroy Alabama, an Alabama guy. And I get a phone call from New York, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to be on Barbecue Pitmasters?" And I was like, "Yeah." Funny thing is now Trevor Knight's a customer. He knows this story. And I'm like, "I didn't even care that you beat my team because I got a call to go be on Barbecue Pitmasters." So that was the first part. But the cool thing, I only had 3 weeks notice to be on the show, to be on the TV show. And I had no business being on the show. This was January 2014. And the producer, you get a producer attached to you. And she called me and she said, "By the way, if you make your own barbecue products, you can bring them on the show and we will show them. So that's where you guys would get interested." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She said, "Well, do you buy or do you make your own stuff?" And I was self-taught. I didn't know any better. I didn't really use social media. And I said, "Well, I make 2 seasonings by hand and then I buy, blah, 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 barbecue sauce." And she said, "Well, if you put it in a bottle, we can show it on air." So the next week, I was working right here at the place I described, and I called, I actually went down to Rendon, so just south of where I work, to buy honey powder. One of my seasonings has honey powder in it. And I was just telling the guy what I told you, just like, "Hey, by the way," and he said, "Well, I can make your rub for you. He said, "I'm a co-packer. I can make your rub." I said, "What's a co-packer?" And he said, "Well, you give me a recipe, I'll sign an NDA, and I can bottle 36 pounds for you." And I was like, 36 pounds? That sounds like a lot. So I left, called my brother, I just told him, and he said, "Dude, do it." So I called the guy back. It had been 10 minutes, and I said, "Make my beef rub and call it Meat Church, holy cow. I'll call you with a name for the other rub tomorrow." So, and the other rub was something I had found on a Texas A&M website, and I had adapted. Don't go running with that story.
I'm going to run with that story.
You can like that. So I had it kind of tweaked it to my liking, and I called him back the next day, and Myron Mixon is a judge on the show, and he calls pigs hogs. I said, "Call my all-purpose honey hog." So the co-packer made me labels. They were terrible. Took him on the show. I actually didn't like the mix that he made, so I stopped at Walmart in Tampa, Florida, and made my own crazy in those bottles. and they showed it. And the show aired Easter weekend of 2014. I had gone and filed to the trademark in the meantime. I had created MeChurch.com on my own, and I'm not a web developer, but just stood up a website. And anyway, the show aired. I finished a solid third place out of 3 teams. So my mom was really proud I was on the podium. But so that night I'll never forget, that night we had 6 orders on my Shopify site. And I had 2 seasonings. I had the hat and shirt I wore on the show, a hat and shirt that was like backup, and I think a koozie. And of the 6 orders, 5 of them were friends. And I mean, fast forward now, we'll do $30 million this year with 12 employees, and it's basically been all word of mouth. I don't pay for marketing. We don't have a marketing company. I don't have a marketing title in my company. So it's been a whirlwind, to say the least.
Well, I don't even know how I follow that. Yeah, but when did you decide? Because I know a lot of the people in the room are, maybe they have a W-2 job, as y'all calls it, and then they're doing something on the side. When did you decide to take that leap of faith to go full-time Meet Church?
So we turned 10 years old last year, and it actually happened about close to the 6-year mark. And I will tell you before I forget, leaving my corporate job was the greatest day of my life, but it was literally the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but not because I was scared, but because I'm married, I have 4 kids, and at the time we had 2 in college. When I met my wife, she had boys in the 2nd and 5th grade. Now they are 26 and 30. 30-year-old works for me. And the other 2 are in 6th and 8th grade. Well, when I went to her this idea of leaving my job, it was a fight. It was like, it wasn't even a discussion. And this went on forever. And anyway, before I tell you that part, I've always loved to be mentored by smarter people. So at my company, I was mentored by our COO, who's now one of my best friends. And he was the only person outside the family that I would share our numbers with, what our volume was, what we were doing. And we would meet all the time about, my company was very supportive of what I was doing. At my job, my boss was the CIO from Bank of America. She had moved here to retire, work a couple years to be closer to grandkids. And the day I quit, I'll never forget, I walked in her office and I said, I think I want to retire. And she said, you want what? And I was like, I just don't say that word. And she said, when I came here and took this job and found out what you had going on, I wondered who would be gone from here first, me or you. And anyway, Jason Hardison, who is the CEO of Elevate Credit, who I'm talking about, he and I were talking. Every year our business was doubling the top line. And I was like, well, when's it going to stop? And he said, we've been talking about this for a couple of years, and if you keep doing what you're doing, it's not going to stop. So once we got to a certain level of revenue where our take home was more than my salary, I was personally comfortable. My wife was very uncomfortable, and it clicked with me one day. Father's Day, my dad came to me and he said, hey, Tracy says you're finally going to leave your job. And I said, what? Like the door was open. So I remember that night I went into our bedroom and I had a 1-page document of bullet points. And I stood beside the bed and I let her read them. And I said, I'm not trying to sell you a bill of goods. Like, we're good. And anyway, I finally made the jump and was very fortunate. But the big key to all that mumbo jumbo I just said, I'm a big believer in low overhead, and we had no overhead. I ran the business out of my house, and my only employee was our 2nd oldest son. So I didn't have any expenses. I mean, besides my material that I was buying. And so we were just making it work. So I refused to go buy, I refused to take on partners. I was fortunate that I figured this out in my 40s, not in my 20s, because I'm also mentored by the CEO of Traeger Grills, Jeremy Anderson, went to Harvard, brilliant. And when I was thinking about leaving, he said to me, I talk to a lot of kids like MIT and whatnot, and I always get asked, how do you know when it's right to make the jump? And I said, and he goes, you're going to be nervous and you're going to be uncertain. And I said, Jeremy, I'm not nervous anymore because we never spent this money. Me, churches, I've got my corporate job with my salary and my equity or whatnot. And we were okay. We were proud of what we made. But with Me Church, I refused to take on partners. We self-financed everything. And we came from nothing, by the way. So it's not like we had a bunch of money to make this happen. The only money that my wife and I had was severance I had from a previous job of being laid off before I came before work that we banked and I never touched. So I just kept all the money over here. My wife's very frugal, and so we never pulled the money out. So 5 years into that, I said, okay, we've got this nice little savings, and we're able to finance this as we go. And that was the moment. Well, I also had some pretty good partnerships that paid. So I partnered with Traeger, and that salary was pretty decent. So when that happened, I looked at her and said, we have this salary, we have no debt, we've been smart about this, and she finally let me make the jump.
So we just had a big panel talking about marketing, and I think that one of the best strengths that you have other than your product is how well you market and the story that you tell. So how did you decide what platforms that you were going to be on, what content best fits your mission, to accomplish? Because, I literally use this. I used you as an example earlier. I said, there's 1 million people out there selling really good barbecue products. And Matt's doing 20, 30 times what they're doing because of your marketing. So tell us just kind of, you don't tell the whole secret sauce, but...
Yeah, I'm actually really passionate about this. I'll probably get fired up and excited, but so nobody take any offense to what I'm about to say as far as my degree choice. But when I went into my business school, one of the 4, areas you could go in was marketing. And I had no interest because I thought marketing and management were the easy way out. And so I thought accounting and finance were the hard ones, and that's where I went. But if you talk to my family, particularly my brother, he's like, dude, you're selling people the minute you start talking to them. But people always throw in the term marketing genius. I'm not real comfortable with that, but I can tell you that I love it. And I love the marketing aspect of what we do. And I think that is our whole success. You have to have a good product, but I've strived to be different from everybody else. And I realized very early on, you got to know your customer. And so I realized I was my customer because I had young kids. Why did I grill? Why did I cook out? Well, I like the food and I like the camaraderie and all that stuff. That's core. But I was at an age where I had very young children. They were in sports. I suddenly was home way more. I had to quit hunting and quit playing hockey and all these things I did. I was home. And so cooking is something I could do. So I started speaking to people like that. But the first thing I did, I could show you guys historic pictures. When I was on Pitmasters, our seasonings were black and white labeled. But I went in barbecue galore right here off 20. And when you walk in the door, the seasonings are on the back wall. And I remember when I was 20 feet away, I couldn't tell the difference in anything. They all looked the same. And so I thought, well, I want mine to look different. So I had a cartoon illustrator illustrate our products. And then they were bright colored labels. So a lot of my competitors are all one color. They're all white. They're all black. Mine are different. They're all bright and colorful. That was the core things. And then really this thing wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't trying to create a business, even within the first year. But I was not a fan of Facebook. Even though I led IT, I managed all our applications and hardware. I honestly, we'll say 2010, 11, 12, 13, I hated Facebook. Why? When you open Facebook, you've got to scroll for 10 minutes, and it's the same today. It's maybe worse today, right? You got to scroll through all these politics, and I don't care what you think about this candidate, and I don't care what you think about the Dallas Cowboys. I just want to see this picture of my niece or, whatever. So I was a very late adopter to Facebook. When Instagram came along, I was like, well, that's cool, I'm visual. So I was putting my food on Instagram, but I wasn't just putting a picture of a steak. I would say, here's a steak I cooked on my Big Green Egg with meat church holy cow for 9 minutes at 325, whatever. And I would tell you how to do it. Well, people were really into the how-to. And I've always had a knack for cooking. Cooking's the easy part. And then it turned into, what can I not cook outside? So I'm known to, my daughter-in-law's mother was over one day, and when I lived in Spring Creek in Waxahachie, she said, why were you smoking a pecan cobbler? I was like, well, why wouldn't you? So then it was like trying to push the boundaries. So really bright illustration, being different. And then honestly, the biggest thing is you've got to provide value to people. And the way I provide value, I can go post a picture with a famous person at school and it'll get likes. But if I post like a really good looking dish, it won't necessarily do that well. Well, you have to give people something. So in my case, if I give you something valuable, which is, so what does Matt Pittman do every day? I write recipes and teach you how to cook for free. If you go to our YouTube channel, the production of our YouTube is insanely expensive now, and I'm not taking on sponsors. We have, I think, almost 900,000 subscribers on YouTube. Everyone my size takes on sponsors. So halfway through a video, they say, hey, today this is brought to you by Cutco Knives, blah, 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 and you'll get about $5,000 for that. I turn all that down because what I do is really authentic. I just want to teach you to cook. My belief is if I teach you to cook and show you that I'm genuine, hopefully you'll use my seasoning, or maybe you'll tell somebody about it. And so that's really kind of what we've done.
I think that another strength that you have is obviously building community. I mean, you've got the congregation, you've got this camaraderie amongst all of your followers, and it really makes them feel included and important. And and we're friends. I'm not just telling you that. I mean, you're a genuinely nice guy. Like when people approach you, you're like, hey, I'm Matt. I'm not I'm just one of your buddies that you would cook with, and you truly make people feel that way. Can you talk a little bit about how that approach has helped you grow?
Yeah, I can take quite a few things about that. This is actually something I'm very passionate about as well. So one of the ways we first made the company go was when I developed the seasoning. The term influencer didn't exist, content creator did not exist, but I was doing grassroots marketing. I mean, it was intentional, but I didn't know a term for it. So what I would do when I developed a new seasoning and I was on Instagram, well, I made all these Instagram friends. I'd send that 20 seasoning to people that had decent followings, and they liked it because they got something free, even though it's $10, and they would cook with it and share it. Bam, now they're advertising their audience. So influencer marketing was core to me. I've got a 60-person ambassador team now. I don't pay any of them because we've never paid. Some people pay big money, and we just give free product and make them feel part of the team, give them merch, take care of them. I help them when I can. So that was really kind of how we got started. But the term community is huge, and I can tell you two ways. So I work with a lot of really cool outdoor brands. So I'm a Turnbox ambassador. I mentioned Traeger, Yeti. Those three, for example, they all have communities within their company. So let's just use Yeti, for example. Yeti has a hunt manager, a fish manager, a barbecue manager, an outdoor adventure manager, that includes Conrad Anchor that has sounded Everest multiple times. So they have people that focus on these disciplines, right? And so they go out and they find these products, go find best in breed in their industry. So I would Turtleox, I work with Shane Dorian, who just coached the Olympic surfing team. I literally sat next to Conrad Anchor, and in a Yeti meeting, and I'm like, this dude has climbed Mount Everest 3 times, and I just make brisket. And on this side of me, I could go on and on. The greatest, people you watch on TV that hunt, I'm I'm not worthy of being in here. And then I'm with 4 crazy ass professional bull riders, and that was actually a lot of fun getting to know them. So everyone goes and finds these best in breed people that people look up to, and you think, man, if this guy's using the product, it must be good. But the other thing I was going to mention, the word community, and you mentioned the congregation. I really learned this from Traeger. My customers we now call it the congregation because it works with our marketing, but a friend of mine created a Facebook group years ago called the Meat Church Congregation, and I had nothing to do with the group, and it had 100 people in it. And in 2020, he called me one day and he said, did you do something with the congregation? Because it's exploded. All of a sudden it's growing thousands of people a day. And now it's about 400,000 people. It's my favorite and least favorite Facebook group ever. But the people in it are rabid Meat Church fans, generally. And when you have an ambassador team and you have these customers, you create this community. We use that word a lot because you now realize, say you're all customers, we're all friends, or we all have a common belief. We're all here because we like to grill or barbecue or whatever. Maybe you're a Meat Church enthusiast. And by the way, I don't go hard on you got to use my product. I'm use what you want. And it's worked. So you make everyone feel welcome, and they all end up going and being advocates. This is a crazy number, but if you go to our website, usually we have 15 to 20 different shirts and 35 different hats. That's insane. That's nobody has that much merch. Well, we only do it because it works and people like it and they wear it. So if your kids play club volleyball, you should definitely. I've learned that club volleyball dads are my demographic. But or the coolest thing is I'll be walking through DFW and or Love Field, and I'll always see Meat Church, and I'll go up and say something. Yesterday I was in HEB. This is crazy. This has never happened. I was in the checkout line and the lady in front of me was buying one of my seasonings. I pulled up my phone and I snuck a little video, and then she busted me and she was like, "Do you make this stuff?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." I thought that was kind of cool that you were buying. But you just make a.
You yes, ma'am, too.
I do 100%. I do have good manners. Anyway, make everyone feel welcome because they really are, and then they become your biggest advocate. So community is a huge part of what we do.
So this wasn't a comment or a question that I was going to ask you, but you touched on something that we talked about in a couple of the panels before you, was that one of the things that I love in your content is that you embrace your and I don't even want to call them competitors, but, you know, there'll be videos, if you see him, he'll say, you know, I used, you know, whatever on this, and it's not his product. So I talked a little bit about, when we were talking about marketing, about, you know, get to know and not just make your competitors not your enemies, make them your friends. You know, get to know them. It's the rising tide that raises all the ships. I mean, the more popular, you know, cooking out and doing that is, the more successful Nature is just going to be. So I love that you embrace it and you make friends with those people that are selling essentially the same product.
Yeah, you know, at first I said we don't make a seasoning for every occasion, right? So there's like, I don't make a blackened seasoning, but I love blackened fish, and so I buy some, right? And then there's all sorts of similar products. I just make dry products, so seasoning, injections, chili, stuff like that. Well, I love all sorts of sauces and glazes and things like that. So, you know, I'm known to leverage a lot of my friends' stuff. If you come to my store in Waxahachie, we only sell stuff in there that I use. They're all my friends' stuff, so it's like a story of my barbecue journey. I love particularly using Texan products, so I'm really known for that. But you bring up a good point. There's a guy named Wes Wicker. He came by and dropped off something in my house this morning, but he makes an amazing pepper jelly glaze. And I mean, you didn't ask this, so I'm gonna throw it in here. So I'll tell you the fast version. He got sued by someone who bought a company with a similar name in Mississippi, and it was nasty. And they were in arbitration down in Austin last year, and Wes called me, and I used his product, and I had put it out there before. And he called me, said, I need your advice. He said, I'm about to give this guy a huge chunk of money to change my name, and what do you think? And I said, don't do it. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll go make a video next week with your product, because I use it, I sell it, everybody knows I do it. And I said, we'll get that money back for you. And by using Big Wick's jalapeno glaze in 2 videos the next 2 weeks, he was able to pay off all his debt. He was able to buy a trailer to deliver his stuff, and he just bought his first house in Lubbock, which is kind of cool. And so, to your point, all ships rise, you know, and we're all one big family. Luckily, I sell a $10 product. It's not like I'm selling a $5,000 grill where you may only buy one. You can buy mine, you can buy yours, and, you know, again, I don't make money for everybody, and then it works out better because then you all kind of help each other, and it's not a gold rule. There's certainly people that don't like me, but by and large, we try to be, you know, same-minded.
So what, for people what advice would you give a small business owner if they're at that jumping off point? What advice would you give them, you know, when they want to follow their dream and take it to the next level?
So I've covered some of it when I mentioned the low overhead, big deal. That's a huge focus of mine. If you guys are barbecue enthusiasts, you know the famous Texas Monthly Top 50 list. Goldie's in Kennedale is current #1. Their location, it actually has a lot of charm, but it's like a piece of crap restaurant compared to many places you would go to. And when they hit #1, I said, I give them advice. I said, don't take on an investor. Don't go get some fancy, beautiful restaurant. Try to stay in here. Another amazing example is we're near here. So my buddy Dane Weaver that owns Dane's in Aledo, he was at Lola's Trailer Park just outside downtown Fort Worth, and he had some of the richest people in Fort Worth wanting to open a restaurant with them, and they were going to take big cuts. And I kept saying, no. If any of you guys go eat at Dane's, which, by the way, you heard it here first, I feel like it will be #1 on the next Texas Monthly Top 50 next year. We'll see. Go visit Dane and Ashley and ask them who told you not to take any overhead, and he'll tell you my name. But they amazingly found this, I think it was a Mexican restaurant in Aledo, took it over, and he came back to me and says, that's advice she ever gave me. So, you know, having your finances right is a big deal. I was lucky that I married someone. We both came from nothing. We both moved out at 17. Nobody ever gave us 5 cents. And she's always reined me in on spending money. So when I told the story earlier about banking everything we could, don't pay yourself. I have a friend that just bought a Hot Works. And if he doesn't take any money out for 3 years, he'll own it. It was like owner finance. And I was like, don't pay yourself. And what's he doing? He's bought a lake house and a Corvette since then. So, you know, you have to be smart financially. That does go back to my degree. And then, you know, the good thing for me, I'm obviously very passionate about what I do. So if you watch me in a video, it's real. When people call me and they say, this is a true story, hi, this is Reynolds Wrap. We'll pay you $15,000 to make 3 Instagram posts. I'll do it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. Content creation is like the way of the world. People make a lot of money that way. But if I talk about something, it's because I use it and I believe in it and my passion comes through. I'm genuine. I'm fortunate again that I learned it later in life, and I know not everyone has the financial ability to do that, but if you're genuine, and last thing, I outwork everybody. I don't sleep. So you could ask my wife that. That's super important, but you would be here if you did the same thing.
Yeah, I think we have touched on it. That is a common thread throughout the whole day is make it genuine, make it authentic, or it's not going to be effective. And I will tell you, this guy, he really is out there cooking. So Matt and Tracy lived kind of like down the street and then down the street for me. And I used to try to be out, like getting exercise, getting my steps in, and then you start smelling it. And then you're not exercising anymore. You're just on the porch with a cocktail. But he really is out there. It's really, that is the guy you see in the video when he's not making a video. So I'm just really proud of you, my friend. And
thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun. Entrepreneur is my favorite word in the English dictionary. So when you called me months ago, I was like, I'd love to do this because this is like right in my. We're all the same. We're the same people here. So I appreciate you guys listening.
I was kind of shocked because he's so busy, and he texted me right back. He said, I'd love to. It's on my calendar. I was like, what? You're not doing something with the Cowboys that day? And I guess that's where I'm going. It's just, I remember going from back in the day when it was porch pickup,
Yeah.
And now, you've been, a few months ago, Jimmy Kimmel, I get a call I knew you were going to be on there, but my 23-year-old son, he knows DJ. DJ says, Matt is on TV, like real TV.
I was just as shocked as you were. I will clarify, it was Jimmy Fallon.
Oh, Jimmy Fallon, sorry. Yeah.
But Tracy was at lunch with her friends, and I get this email from NBC. It said, Jimmy's a big fan, let's have you on the show. And I was like, what? So my wife, she doesn't care about any of the celebrity stuff I get. It's George Strait, but other than that, she doesn't care. Which she's not rude. She just doesn't, do anything for her. And I called her and told her, and she about fell out. So I told him when I met him, I'm like, you don't know how many brownie points you got me with my wife. So thank you for having me here.
If y'all didn't see it, I think you can find it on YouTube. Yeah, it's like they had like a cooking competition right before the Super Bowl at Soviet Foods. So it was, and he was one of the competitors. You've lost it.
Yeah, so this is the second year they've done it, and it's like this. You go look, and it was into January, beginning of February. It's like those. Just go look up Tonight Show Super Bowl Challenge, and it was me and Tariq versus Jimmy and a guy named Billy, a barbecue guy from Brooklyn who I know because we're both Yeti guys, and we had to cook off against one another. We had like 1 or 2 minutes to make something out of typical Super Bowl foods, and funny the way it turned. I don't want to spoil it, but I guess I will. But Tariq, another guy in the Roots, is in the back room in the cone of silence judging. He comes out and judges the food, and he accidentally picks the wrong one. But I'm the one that noticed it. If you watch it, I'm pointing over, I go, there's some confusion here. So Jimmy realized he screwed up, and he swooped in and took the trophy and won. But it ended up being like super funny. So
yeah.
And you need to know this before I leave here. You get to take a secret weapon. So the Texan cooked the biggest rack of beef ribs I could find. Like I called 44 Farms in camera. I said, I need the biggest ones. I've never seen a rack this big. I cooked them here, froze them, put them in my suitcase, and flew them to New York. And we're staying in this fancy hotel, and we got a butler, which I thought was crazy. And she's like, would you like me to unpack your clothes for you? And I was like, eh. And then I got a rack of beef ribs in the middle of my sweatpants. I was going to put it on Instagram, but I thought if the world sees that Matt Pittman carried beef ribs, next to his underwear, I don't know what would happen.
That's part of the keeping it real. So, well, I'm super proud of you, and I really appreciate you coming today. I guess we'll sum it up with what's next for Me Church. You've got stuff going on with the Cowboys and all kinds of fun stuff.
It's crazy. Like, I can never give anybody a 2, 3, 4, 5-year plan because this house is always on fire with us. But we do have a lot of really cool things going on at the moment. So I just became the official pitmaster of Dallas Cowboys 2 weeks ago, but I won't be selling barbecue, thank God, at the stadium. That's just like cool stuff that I'm doing with them. And this week I should sign my partnership with Buffalo Trace, your bourbon guy. That may be my new best day of my life when the bourbon shows up. We bought a new headquarters out by the Super Collider, so that's like dream come true. We bought a massive facility to kind of future-proof the business, so we're really focused on that. I'm trying to finish my cookbook, so a lot of little tactical things like that, but I don't know, it's crazy. With no plans, like check with me in a month and something cool manages to always pop up. Like last year, I was like, we didn't have the year we had last year. And it was well known that the number one person I wanted to cook for was George W. Bush. And it's crazy. I get a call. Like it got out in the world and I cooked his Christmas meal for him. And yeah, that was nuts. And then the Jimmy Fallon thing happened. And anyway, I don't know who's going to call next. We'll see. I'm hoping Nick Sagan calls. Anybody knows him money.
Gig on, right? Yeah, well, thank you again, Matt, for coming, and we just appreciate it so much, and you're always welcome in Weatherford, for sure.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.